Um, Today we are going to discuss support and resistance lines, and we are going to take it to an advanced level. We are going to discuss a lot of charts in detail. We are going to discuss some very neat tricks on identifying some support and resistance areas, the demand and supply zones, and we are going to look on how we can use support and resistance lines to our advantage, what is change of polarity, how a resistance becomes support, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up few of my charts that I haven't done any support or resistance lines. And what we are going to do, we are going to discuss everything. We're going to create the support and resistance lines. We're going to discuss what other factors can act as support and resistance lines. And we're going to see what indicators can be used to discuss support and resistance lines. So here, if we can see, I have some watch lists and I'm going to go pull up my 7th September watch list, and we have some charts over here. So just out of curiosity, I'm gonna open anything like Atif. So let's go. Let's start with RDHL, and we're gonna go all the way down to like 10 to 12 charts. So opening my Webull here, and we're gonna go on RDHL, and we're gonna discuss in detail what we can do and what we cannot. So I'm gonna clear all my drawings over here, and this is the RDHL chart, guys. So this is the whole. It started back in 2013 and currently it's in 2022. I'm going to put the daily chart because I'd like to see the daily charts. I have the chart set up to identify the gap resources, and which you can do go to the chart settings, and here you can adjust your gaps. I don't like grids on my back, so I don't like that. I want to see split dividends and earnings, and that's all. Type of chart is demand chart, cost data is fixed, and so on. Okay, so let's start, guys. Now, what we can do, guys, starting off with the basics. First of all, make sure that windows are a really good support and resistance lines. So basically, this is a falling window. What's a falling window or what's a rising window? A rising window is a window in which the price gaps up in the pre-market and opens up higher. Whereas the falling window is when the price gaps down in the pre-market and opens lower. So what happened here, guys? Now this is the daily, right? So with the immediate first resistance area would be, I'm going to use red lines for resistance areas. So here you can see the low of this day would be my first resistance area, and this would act as the second resistance area. These both are the resistance areas for me, the first resistance area. Okay, guys. So because this is a falling window, now the strongest resistance area would be this area. This would be the strongest resistance area. I would not consider this a lot of resistance area, but again, it depends on how many times it is gonna test this area. So here you can see it have tested one, then it came back down, and now it have tested twice. It tried to went back up, but it didn't quite did it, and it came back down. So this is our R1 right now. Okay, if we move back to this area, now here you can see that there it was the highest high, and then this looks like to me more like a doji or a spinning top. And if we're gonna discuss these two candlesticks, this is a bear harami. What's a bear harami? That the small candles 25% closing into the previous prior close, and these two candles together is a bear harami. What we can do, we can use this high as our next resistance area, which I'm gonna mark it as red. And with all-time highs, this is gonna be my final resistance area. That's 11.80. Okay, so now we have seen this is the immediate resistance area. So first we have to break this resistance area. Like for example, for a period of time, if we go back to the 1 minute on the daily, so this is the 1 minute on the daily, right? And what happened here? See, the price gapped up, and this acted as the support area in the pre-market. So what happened that when this resistance area broke, this would have become support area. This would have become a support area. But when it broke down, this would have become again our resistance area. So that is called a change of polarity, that when resistance breaks, it should become support. So basically tested here right at this area, but then it didn't held as strongly into the open. It went all the way up to the 5.70 area, which was above the resistance line. And if this would have tested this area and bounced back, it would have been really good, because then we would have the room all the way to our next resistance line, that was around 7.32, the low of this candle. However, what we are going to do, we are going to see this is gap, right? This gap should be filled, but there is some resistance in this gap area as well. So here you can see, if we go back, so here there is some resistance at this area which is tested twice. So if we make a horizontal line over here, right at this low, that's 5.910, right? And I'm going to make this as red as well. So here you can see that right here, this candle right here has become a new resistance area because it has been tested twice. One, two. So this is how we can draw some simple resistance lines. And if we go back to our stock charts area, I would like to show you another thing. So this is chart of Allen, right? Now, if you're a beginner, which I would say you never do that, but if you're a beginner and you're having problems identifying support and resistance areas, so you're just gonna go to the overlays, that's an oscillator, and can bring up volume by price. So what volume by price does, it sorts out volume by price. So here you can see the largest volume is at this area. So the strongest support would be at this area, right? So what we are gonna do, we are gonna draw the line. We're gonna pull it back right here, because this is near $4. Almost, let's make it to 4, right? 4 is a natural support area. So see how this have tested, 1, 2, 3, bounce back, and it came all the way down. The price came all the way down, and then it have tested this, and it have went back over here. Now what I can do, this can act as a future support area. So when the price comes back down, this would be a good loading area. Here you can see that we had a hammer right here, and the hammer tells us support, remember? So this hammer was confirming the support of this movement over here. Okay, so here you can see that this and these were three confirmations of prior support, and now the hammer has confirmed it. So if you saw this 3 days ago or 4 days ago, this would have been a really good buy for you guys. Now what's the resistance area? So what we can see is, now this is gonna be my first resistance area. Then there is this 4.88 area, because see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It have tested this area a lot more times. And another thing that I can do in this chart is make a trend line, because here you can see that the price is moving in a trend, right? And it's not able to break in an uptrend. So here you can see it's look like a trend line, that is descending trend line, and this can really get some steam if we break above this area right here, because that's double resistance area, and that would be a really strong move right back up. Moving on, if we keep drawing our resistance lines, so the next resistance would be around this area, that is 5.5, which is a natural resistance area. And after that, I don't see a very strong resistance up until this area, that is 6, and then all the way to 6.760. If we go back in time, we can see how it's correlating with the previous chart. Here you guys can see there were no resistances. They finally found some resistance at the 5.5 area. This was this area, and then again at the 6.5 or 6.7 area. So here you guys can see it's finding beautiful support areas over here. So that's why resistance line and support lines are very important. Moving on to another chart that I like, which was NZMI. And what I liked about this chart was it was coming all the way back down. And let me pull it up in here, NCMI. Okay, guys. So I'm just gonna clear the chart. This was the chart, right, guys? This was the chart. And if we go all the way back, if we go all the way back to November of last year, there was a rising window. There was a rising window. Let me go to the chart settings and make it none so that you guys don't get confused. So this was the rising window, right? To make it more clear, we can use a weekly chart over here, and yeah, so this is the weekly chart, right? So we can use the weekly chart to go all the way back, or just use a daily. I like to use the daily, and if I can't find support, then I use the weekly. And here, if we go right here, so this was the rising window, right, guys? So this became the new support area for me. This was the strongest support area, S1, and then this was the first support area. So what I can do, I can name this S1, and I can name this S2. So what happened, guys, recently NCMI went all the way back to 6.11, came down, and see, guys, it was a strong sell, a really strong sell, but this rising window act as a really good support area, which was exactly the low of 2.52. And what was this? This was the high of 2.010. So let me adjust this accordingly. 2.01, and this is 2. Yeah, I think that's exact. So 2.520 was the previous support area, right? So what happened, guys, right here, we see the price came back down to this area, 2.52 area. It break this area, it closed this area. But this is just a 10-cent close, so I'm not worried. I think it can still bounce back. And see how it traded sideways, and it formed a new support area at around 2.41 or 42, which is not bad, which is very close enough to the previous support area. And after a testing of this area, and there was a trend forming over here, guys. If you guys can really see, we saw we saw a trend like this. Here you can see this was a downtrend, and the real movement started right after it broke or closed above this area. Now this is why now this line and this line which was previously resistance now have become a really good support. So remember, guys, the falling windows are really good. Falling and rising windows are really good and support lines. Now if we move to some other charts, like, okay, so let's go to Atif, because I want to show you guys something on that particular chart. So here's Atif, right? Here's Atif, and if we go on the daily Atif, so what we can do now, instead of just drawing horizontal lines, there are ascending and descending trend lines, and we can definitely see there's a trend line over here and it's descending. So what we can do, we can use at least three highs. Using at least three highs would, or at least two highs are even better, but please make sure that you're joining at least 2 points or 3 points over here. So here you can see it's touching this area, it's touching this area, and if we extend this all the way, it's right here. So see, it's trading in a channel right now. It's trading in a channel. Let me make it an extended version. Let's use this high, and I'm gonna use this high. I like to use the highest wicks of the trend line, but you can also use the reclose of the real bodies. I like to use the highest wick. So here you guys can see that Atif is in a downtrend, and it's trading in a channel, because if we use this area and let's say this area. So here you guys can see this was a support area, this was a resistance area, and every time the price came back here, one, does it came back down, two, three. So you can trade this, or when it break. So just see, guys, I draw this area, it came back down, it bounced back up, and now this trend line which now broke over here, right here, now this trend line become the new support area for artists. And here you guys can see now the price is bouncing off this trend line, right? Every time it hits, it bounces, it hits, it bounces back. Another thing that I would like to show you guys is sometimes Fibonacci retracements can help. So what we can do, we can use the low to the high of a strong movement, and here you guys can see that this area is correlating with the 61% area, which is the Fibonacci retracement. The strongest retracements are 38.2, 50%, and 61.8%. If we go, let's see, if we go an oversold stop, and if we go to BW, let's bring BW chart, and we're gonna draw some lines over here. Our first resistance line and support lines over here. So, okay, guys. So what are you seeing over here? What we are saying that this price is trading sideways, and as you can see, the price is descending slowly. So we are seeing more like a descent over here. So let's just draw that, quickly. I use the highest high, so 9.90, and what I can do is I can join this with this area, or maybe I can use this area. It's more accurate and appropriate. So 1, 2, 3. It's touching 3. I can also do. I can also use this, or I can make this, but it's only tested twice, so it's not very strong for me, and then I will be missing a lot of move over this area, so that won't be accounted for. Therefore, I use this to touch this area so I can see the maximum range of this area. And what you guys can see, guys, there's a hammer right here. And as I told you before, hammer can act as a really good support. So just looking at the hammer on a downtrend, I would draw a support line over here. So just with this little detail, you can see it's kind of a descending triangle. And here we were having an ascending triangle move, an ascending triangle, or just you can see here we were having a trend line in the above. So what really happened, guys? What really happened was, so this was a triangle, symmetric triangle. It was bouncing. It didn't confront the breakout. It came back down, and here, see the support which was broken right here became the new resistance area. And similarly, this line also became which was already the resistance area. It's still acting as the resistance area. So this line and this line are some resistance areas over here, and so 1, 2, it's a very strong resistance area, so I'm going to take this a lot serious. If we break this area, then our target would be around this area. Along with that, what we can do, we can use this area as another resistance line, because this area have been tested around 3 to 4 times. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now see how this would have been a resistance area, which now have become the support area. So if we just cover all of this, so see how this became support, it traded sideways, and it wasn't decisive until it closed above this area. Now it's trying to go break above this area and go near that resistance area. So these resistance and support lines. Now this has become the support, so I'm gonna change that into blue or green, and is my color. Let's do this. Okay, so this is green. So here you guys can see that how support and resistance is very important and crucial. One of the favorite charts that I like is PFMT, and don't be scared with the charting on this one. I'm just going to delete this for you guys, and I'm going to do that again. So let's just delete this. And here we guys can see that there are some rising windows, falling windows, some gaps, very small gaps. And to identify them, I'm gonna turn on my charts, because sometimes gaps are not very clear from our naked eye. Even the software is not recognizing this gap. So you have to make sure that you have the gap. A gap is a gap is a gap, and is a very strong support and a resistance area, guys. So let's bring PFMT all the way back here, and let's see what really happened to this chart. So here you guys can see that the stock. Okay, for this I'm gonna pull up the weekly, because the weekly would look much better, and the weekly is kind of an island bottom over here. So in the long term, it can go all the way back to 14. But let's see what's happening over here. So this is the weekly chart. I have the extended line drawn. I'm going to use this and this as my trend line. So this is the trend line, right? And the stock is following this trend line. And see up till now, it's still not broken this trend line. And if we go back up, there was a resistance at this area, which was around 2.178. So I'm going to use this 2.178 area as my resistance. And let's see what happens on the daily now. So here, right here, if you guys can see, I could have made another line, which would be an extended line, and I could use this with this. So this is a trend line, right guys? This is the trend line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this became support. See, this became support. So I don't have to make it again and again. If you have made it correct the right time, it's already working in the future, right? So I don't have to make it again and again. So here you guys can see this acted as the resistance area over here. This acted as the resistance area over here, right until this part when we finally broke this resistance area and we gapped up in this window. So here you guys can see this is a very small window of 5 cents, but this is a window, and if this is a window, then I'm gonna make a support line right over here, because I know that windows can act as a really good support. 2.95 would be my very strong support, and I'm gonna use 2.95 for good support areas. So here you can see I'm going to make it a little bit bold. So let's see what happens. Okay, so price back up. Here again we have a window, so we can use this for the very slight time period. It held as a support for 1 day, came back down, and this closed under this area. So once it's closed under this area, we're gonna see if this retests again or not, and only after that we're gonna decide if this is still acting as support or not. So right here it was support, but when this break, these two became good resistance areas for us. And we still have this support, we still have this support, we still have this support, and it came back down, and we see some hammers. We're gonna draw some support line over here, because hammers can act as a good support over here. And so this is our charting, right? So this came back up, came back down, back up. Now we see some resistance at this area, and if we go all the way back, so I don't know why this is acting as a resistance area, but I'm pretty sure if we go all the way back, I'm gonna mark it, with a different color, so we can see why this acted as a resistance area. And I'm pretty sure that if we go back in time, let's make it purple. Let's go to the weekly and see if we go all the way back up, the purple is matching on the resistance area on the weekly chart. Even here we have a weekly chart, and where it's acting as a good support area. So see, that's why we can go as long back as we want, but I don't go almost a year or 2 year. But see how this acted as support again and resistance area. Now that it have broken, it would have become support area for us. And if we go back up, this would act as the new support area. So I'm going to mark this as strong, because this is our first S1 now, here right now. So we're going to see the price movement. This came back up, came back down. So this was the resistance area. This would be resistance area, tested very strong resistance at this area, came back to this area where we see a morning star, or more like a piercing pattern over here. This is not a piercing pattern, but more like a bull sash or a bull separating line. And I'm going to draw this as support. And here you guys can see now this is acting our new support. This resistance is not very strong, so I'm going to delete this. And here, so this is the ultimate charting of our stock.